Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about adding and subtracting rational expressions. But now we're going to have to find a common denominator. They're not going to be the same. Okay? You're going to need some notes, a pen and a pencil, and a calculator. And I can't stress enough, you guys, make sure you get all of the work down. All right? So our objective today, you guys, is that we will be learning how to add and subtract rational expressions with unlike denominators. Okay, and we're going to make sure we're going to do this accurately. So first thing we're going to look at is just our general fraction. In order to make this work, these have to be the same. So if we look, I can take 5 times 2 and I'm going to get 10, but if I do it to the bottom, I also have to do it to the top. So if I rewrite this problem, it's going to be 2 over 10 plus 7 over 10. Now that these are the same, I'm going to keep that as my denominator and add my numerator so I get 9 over 10. All right, that's going to be the general idea of what we're going to be doing today. So once again, you guys, you have to have this in your notes, please, in order to add or subtract rational expressions with unlike denominators. Okay, we're working with unlike denominators. First thing you must find is your least common denominator or your LCD. I'm going to write LCD all the time. So you have to find that least common denominator. We're making common denominators by multiplying, not adding. That's very, very important. We're going to be doing a lot of multiplying. Okay. And once again, like always, you guys, factoring will be involved. All right, we're going to go over 5 examples, which is quite a bit, but please make sure you get each one of them down and you get all the work that goes along with it, because that's going to help us tremendously. So ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at this one. Example number 1, we have 2 over x times 3. Remember, that's x times 3, they're different, and 5 over x squared. Now we're even going to break down x squared to x times x. We're breaking down anything that we can break down. Now, when we find our least common denominator, guys, we're going to be using this awesome table that looks like this. You're going to be drawing a lot of them, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to put each denominator in its own place. So our first one, you guys, this is our denominator for our first one. So I'm going to write 3 times x. I'm just writing what's in there. And then I'm going to separate them into their own blocks. So I'm going to have 3 has its own space, and x has its own space. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the same thing for my other denominator. I have x times x, that's what I'm starting with. Now I'm going to break it apart. Each thing needs its own box. So I'm going to have x, and this is just extra, so that can go away, okay? Now, in this last column, why I have 3 instead of 2 is that we're going to be working with our least common denominator. Our LCD is going to go here. Now, to find our LCD, we're just going to bring things down. So this column, I'm going to bring down a 3. This column, I'm bringing down an x. This column, I'm bringing down an x. So this is how we're going to be filling these out each time. And then I like to personally rewrite mine over here, simplified, so I have 3, and I can change x times x to x squared. So there's my least common denominator. I have just found that. Now remember, if we remember back on our last one, we had to multiply on the top. So we're going to multiply what is missing. So I am missing, in my first row here, I am missing whatever should be here. If I look down my column, it should be an x. So on my top here, I need to take 2 times x. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the next row. So over here, this is what I'm missing. It should be a 3, so I'm going to multiply this by 3. So once I get here, I'm going to rewrite this problem as 2 times x, which is 2x over my least common denominator, plus 5 times 3, which is 15, over my least common denominator. Now I'm going to combine those. So when I do that, I'm going to get 2x plus 15. Now once I'm here, you guys, I'm actually going to write what my least common denominator is, which we already found, and that's going to be 3x squared. Can't factor any of this. This is going to be my final answer. Okay? If you want, these are going to be in parentheses, so we can't cancel anything out. There's a lot going on here, so make sure you guys are going step by step. There's going to be a lot of work that's going to be shown on all of these problems. All right, here's example number 2. Now, before we even start working in our table, you guys, we have to see if our denominators can be factored. In this case, this one can be factored. This is perfect squared, so this is going to be x plus 2 and x minus 2. So remember, on our first box, I'm going to go ahead and write this down. I have x plus 2, x minus 2. So my whole denominator gets written in that first one. Now I'm going to give each factor its own box. If it's in parentheses, it's its own factor. So I'm going to write x plus 2 gets its own, and x minus 2 gets its own. Now I'm going to move over to my second fraction. Right here, my factor is just going to be x minus 2. So now when I put that in there, you guys, it has to go in the same column as my x minus 2. So it can't go in the first one. It has to go here where it matches up. And that's the only other thing I have. So these last two, you guys, I'm not going to need this time. This is what I'm working with. Now I'm going to bring everything down to find that least common denominator. So I bring down my x plus 2, I bring down my x minus 2. Simplify this. My least common denominator, you guys, is going to be x plus 2 and x minus 2. So that's what my denominator is going to be in the end. Now I have to see what I'm missing. If I look at my first row right here, you guys, I'm not missing anything, so I don't have to multiply this by anything. So I'm going to keep 4x plus 1 over my LCD. Now my second one here, I have an empty box right here. This is what I have to replace. If I look at my row, I'm missing x plus 2. So that's what I have to multiply in my numerator on my second fraction, x plus 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and distribute that out, so I get a 3x plus 6 over my LCD. Now I have this on the top, this is a positive 3x. Now I can go ahead and I can combine these, you guys. Combine like terms on the top. So I'm going to take 4x, 3x, so I get 7x plus 7. And I'm going to put this over my LCD. My LCD is x plus 2, x minus 2. And we're always going to check. If we look at this one, I can factor this. I can take out a greatest common factor. I can take out 7, and I'm left with x plus 1. Rewrite my denominator, which is x plus 2, x minus 2, and then this is going to be my solution here because I can't cancel anything out. Okay, remember, lots of work going into this. Make sure you guys are getting it all down. Here comes example number 3, all right? Once again, you guys, before we even start working with our table, we're going to want to factor things out. If I look here, my second one, I'm going to do AC. I'm not going to go through all the work, you guys. You should know how to do AC by now. If not, you need to make sure you're coming in for some help, okay? So if I factor this out, you guys, I get x plus 5 times x plus 5. Those are the two factors. So when I write these into my box, once again, you guys, my first fraction here, I'm going to write x plus 5. Break it down. It's in parentheses, so it stays together, so I get x plus 5 here. Then I go to my second fraction, see what's in the denominator. I have x plus 5 and x plus 5. That's what I write down first. And then each factor gets its own space. So one of the x plus 5s is going to go here under the other one. The other one needs its own space, so it's going to get its own box. I've used everything. I don't need these two, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now I'm going to find my least common denominator. To find that least common denominator, you guys, we're just bringing what's down in our rows. So in this column, I have x plus 5. This column, I have x plus 5. So my least common denominator, if I simplify it, is x plus 5 and x plus 5. Now we're going to go through, see what we're missing. So in my first column here, this is what I'm missing. I'm missing this. What should be written there is an x plus 5. So I'm going to multiply this by x plus 5. So I'm going to take 4 and I'm going to distribute it. So I'm going to get 4x plus 20 over, get rid of this denominator, I'm going to write my least common denominator underneath that. My second one, if you guys see, I'm not missing anything, so I don't need to multiply by anything, but make sure you guys are checking the sign. This needs to be a negative. So that means this whole thing needs to be multiplied by -1. If I distribute that through, I'm going to get a -6x plus 1 over my LCD. Now I have a least common denominator. Now I can combine things on the top that are the same. So if I go ahead and do that, I'm going to have 4 minus 6, which is a -2x. And I have 20 plus 1, so I get a positive 21. Write my least common denominator, and that is x plus 5, x plus 5. I can't factor my numerator, so this is going to be my final solution. All right? Make sure we go through and do each step. All right, here comes example number 4. All right, once again, you guys, this time, if I look at my denominators, I don't have anything that I can factor, so I can move right into my box. My first fraction here, I'm going to take my denominator. I have x plus 4. Break it down so x plus 4 gets its own space. Then I'm going to go ahead to my second fraction, see what my denominator is. My denominator is x minus 3. So I write x minus 3. Now that's not the same as x plus 4, so it needs its own x minus 3. I have nothing else that I'm worried about, so I don't need these two this time. And now I need to find my least common denominator. To do that, I'm going to bring everything down. So I'm bringing down x plus 4, and I'm bringing down x minus 3. I like to rewrite mine so it looks nice. X plus 4, x minus 3. Now I'm going to go through, see what I'm missing. So in my first column here, I'm missing this. This is empty space. What should be there is an x minus 3. So I'm going to take that x minus 3 and I'm going to multiply it by my numerator in my first fraction. So x minus 3. Go through here. I'm going to distribute this 3 to here and here. So I'm going to get 3x minus 9 over my LCD. I'm going to do the second. With the second row, or excuse me, column, I am missing this. What should be there if I look at my column is x plus 4. So my second fraction, I need to multiply by x plus 4. I do that, I'm going to distribute my 8. So I'm going to get, and it's a positive 8. Make sure you're checking that sign. That's very important. I'm going to get an 8, a positive 8x plus 32 over my LCD. Now that I have a common denominator, I'm going to add my numerator. So I have 3 plus 8, which is 11x. Negative 9 plus 32, which is a positive 23. over my common denominator, which is x plus 4, x minus 3. Can't factor my numerator, so this is going to be my final answer. All right, there she be. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's our last example. Now, do you guys see this one has 3 fractions? So our table is going to look different. We're going to add another column. So now I'm going to have 4 columns. Once again, you guys, we have to break these down first if we can. So if we look at this one, I can take out an x. So I'm going to be left with x minus 3. This one's difference of squares. So let's work with our first fraction first, okay? So I have x and x minus 3. X gets its own space. And then x minus 3 gets its own space. Now I can move on to my second fraction. I have x squared minus 9, which can be x plus 3, x minus 3. Write both of those down. Now they need their own space. X plus 3, I don't have a row for that yet, so it has to have its own space. But x minus 3 can go in my x minus 3 row. Now our last one here, I have x. I can take out an x and I'm left with x minus 3. X minus 3. So x gets its own spot. X minus 3 gets its own spot. In this case, I don't need that last row. Now I'm going to find my least common denominator, my LCD. To do this, bringing everything down. So I have x, x minus 3, x plus 3. All of this goes in my least common denominator. So I get x, x minus 3, x plus 3. Now I'm going to go back. Start with what I'm missing. So my first one, you guys, go across. This is my first one. I'm missing this. This is an empty space that should say x plus 3. So my numerator needs to be multiplied by x plus 3. I'm going to distribute my x. So I get x squared plus 3x over my LCD. That one's done. Moving on, if I look at my next one, this is what I'm missing, you guys. What should be here? It should be an x. So I'm going to multiply this one by x. So I have a positive 1 times x, so I have a plus 1x over my LCD. Then moving on to my last one, my last fraction, I have an opening. I'm missing this. I'm missing x plus 3. So I need to multiply this by x plus 3. When I do that, it's a positive 4, so I'm distributing a positive 4 here. And I'm going to get plus 4x plus 12 over my LCD. Once I get here, now I can combine all my like terms. Combine all my like terms, I'm going to get x squared plus 7x plus 12 all over my LCD, which is x, x minus 3, x plus 3. Now if I would go ahead and do AC on the top, I would get an x plus 4, x plus 3 over my x, x minus 3, x plus 3. Now here I could cancel out x plus 3, so my final answer is going to be x plus 4 all over x minus 3. and this is going to be my final solution. All right, wonderful people. I know that was a lot, but hopefully this makes sense to you. If you have questions, make sure you ask. All right, have a wonderful day. Bye.